Okay, so welcome everyone to DotLoop training. My name is Mike Little. I'm a senior customer success manager here at DotLoop, and I will be leading your training. I've been working with your staff members for the last month or so, helping your staff members get trained on DotLoop. And now we are really excited to introduce DotLoop to your brokers today. As you see on our screen now, the agenda for today's training is this. We are going to do an initial tour of DotLoop to show you how to complete your account setup and making sure that you fill out a couple things before we begin creating a loop. We will spend the next portion of the training on how to create a loop and then fill out documents and what can cover with that. Once we are finished with the interactive documents portion, we will take you through the client experience. We will then show you how to upload your own documents into the loop. What happens if you have documents saved in a different location or if you have hard copies of documents. And then lastly, I will show you how to turn in your documents into your office. So all in all, we'll probably be on today's training for about 55 minutes to an hour. As previously noted, which I hate those words, I apologize. As previously noted, where can we get the training on this? Megan, I will send a copy of today's training to Dana along with the attendance. That'll be something I'll do either later today, if not tomorrow. So as noted, this training will be recorded, and then I will send it to Dana to distribute thereafter. As well, I will show you how to register for additional training. We actually offer 5 live training sessions per week on top of the training I'm doing for you today. Now, with that being said, let's just do a quick introduction of DotLoop before we go into the tour. And when I think of what DotLoop is, I think of DotLoop as an end-to-end transaction management software. So great, Mike, what does that mean? So within DotLoop, you'll be able to see that there's the ability to fill out documents, the ability to send those documents, the ability to e-sign those documents, and the ability to turn those documents in for review, and lastly, the online storage fees. So when DotLoop was created back in 2010, the concept was, why pay for 5 different software programs when in reality, we can create one that does what everybody always does. And by doing so, you're going to see how much time it's going to save you once you get comfortable with the system. Now, on average, it's about 2 to 4 hours of savings per loop. I know I sound like an insurance commercial. Someone said you sound like Geico. By switching to DotLoop, we're going to save you $600. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's what I'm here for, is to help you be more efficient because time equals money. So not only am I teaching you a new software program today, I'm really teaching you a way to essentially make more money, right? If I can save you, I don't know, a 40-hour work week over 10 transactions, that's 40 more hours that you could spend doing other revenue producing activities. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and begin today's training. The first thing I am going to do before we do anything is click on where it says default profile located at the top right-hand corner of the screen. From this dropdown, you do see our customer support information, which we will also cover later. Also, your member ID. When calling into customer support, you will be prompted to enter in your member ID. That allows us to answer your call since your brokerage is a paying subscriber. Now, the first thing I am going to do is click on where it says My Account. Now, the My Account is where you're able to set up your personal settings. The first thing you want to do is make sure that your name is correct. For instance, maybe I want to go by Michael. Now, Michael is scary because that's what my wife calls me when I'm in trouble. So maybe I might use Mike and make sure all this information is correct. As well, from this screen, this is where you can add your profile picture. This picture is what will be shown anytime you send out an email or you work with somebody. The next thing we're going to do is click on where it says profile. This is also where you can add a picture. So instead of seeing my initials, I can add a picture there. But most importantly, as I scroll down, this is where you're able to type in your company information and your property address. When I show you the interactive documents feature here shortly, within the interactive documents, it's going to import a lot of information from this area of the My Account section. So you will need to put in your company name and your property address. And I really need to turn off that autofill. I'm surprised people don't see possible addresses I live at, right? So this is really important, is to go to your My Account settings and to fill out this information before you fill out any document. As you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will see the notification settings. This is where you can select what notifications you want to receive. Now, you're going to want to receive them all. The only notification that you really don't need to receive is when a tag is added to a loop or document. But with everything else, you're going to want to make sure you get an email notification when something happens in your account. All right, well, next to my initials, the very first tab is going to be your template icon. This is where you're actually able to go in and see all your interactive documents. So your brokerage has a master library. And for instance, if I would like to see the seller net sheet, I can click on it from this library. Now, I can't type in it. Why is that, Mike? The documents in the interactive library are for that. It's meant to be printed out. You are able to add and fill out documents within the loop. So right now, I cannot fill out this document, but let's say this was a contract and I was meeting with my clients in person. Let's say they didn't have email addresses and they weren't able to utilize the e-sign feature. What you're able to go ahead and do is go to the top of the screen and click on File and then click on Print. Now, your brokerage has these documents broken up into different packages, and I am going to show you how to import those documents into a loop once we begin creating a loop. So again, just make sure that you understand documents need to be added into your loop in order to fill them out. But if you ever need to go in and then print off a document, you have access to do that. As well, if you are a Georgia member, this is where you are able to type in your NRDS number to gain access to the Florida library. I'm sorry, to the Georgia library. Same for the Florida library. DotLoop does have a relationship with both of those associations to where those documents do update automatically as new documents come out. The next icon at the top of the screen we have is the People tab. The People tab is where you're able to see your brokerage vendors. Now, let's say I have my own attorneys. For instance, I know some of our Northeast states like New York and New Jersey, they have the same attorneys on every loop. This is where you can feature them. I will show you how the service providers work once we actually get and create a loop. The next thing we have is our contact section. Your contacts get into your loop a couple different ways. The first way is you can click on Add Person and type in your client's information ahead of time. I'm a big fan of doing this in advance because it's going to save me time once I add them into a loop. Now, if you click on this dropdown, DotLoop also has an integration with Gmail and Outlook. So you would be able to import your contacts directly from your email if it's one of those that you currently use. Lastly, and I'm going to show you how to do this as well. When you add someone to a loop, they'll automatically show up here. But these are your contacts. These are specific for you. The next icon is the task icon. Now, the task icon is where you can see any outstanding tasks all in one place. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the more organized you are, the better, the more efficient, the more time saving, the more money you can make in the long run. The smiley face is a home key. So if I want to go back to that main page, I can click on the smiley face or my brokerage. And lastly, we have our reporting feature. So as you begin to create your different loops, this is where you'll be able to see all the different loops in your sales within DotLoop. Think of this as a high-level overview of your book of business. All right, so clicking on my brokerage symbol, your home sold guaranteed realty, it's going to take me to my home page. So now we are ready to create a loop. The only definition that you need to learn today is what is a loop. All a loop is just a transaction. So today we're going to do a listing loop, but the same steps I take to create a listing loop is going to be the same steps I take to create an offer loop or a rental or whatever type of loop you create. I have today's first part of the training on how to create a loop broken up into 4 steps. So regardless of how you're going to use DotLoop or how you're going to use DotLoop or what type of loop you're creating, it's the same 4 steps on every single transaction. Now, the first step is very simple. To create your loop or transaction, simply click on Add Loop located at the top right-hand corner of the screen. Now, when I think of a loop, I visually think of an online manila folder, right? That's what cloud-based storage is. And it's kind of funny, when I learned about cloud-based storage back in 2011, when I first started working at DotLoop, that was a new thing. So I would literally look at a cloud like, this doesn't make sense. All cloud-based storage means just simply logging into a secure server to access your information. So this is like a virtual manila folder. So how do you name your virtual manila folder your loop? We strongly and highly suggest utilizing the property address. It's going to make it easier for you to record keep your files. And when your staff members go to review your files, it's going to make it easier for them to review. Now, in the situation in which you don't have a property address, what if you are meeting with your buyers for the very first time and it's just your buyer's names? That's fine. You can title this loop whatever you want. And I'll show you how, I can show you how to change the name of the loop before you turn it into your brokerage. Now, I know the property address that I'm listing, which is going to be 77 West Pete Rose Way. You may see other loops that are in here. These are active loops that agents have made searchable. I'm going to show you how to make your listing show up for another person to make an offer on. In the situation that you are making an offer on a property and you type in the property address, if it doesn't show up, you can still add the agent to the loop. These are just listings that other agents have made active in their own account. Now, today I'm listing 777 West Pete Rose Way. This is not an active listing. This is not a listing that I've made active myself. But notice, DotLoop does have Google Maps integration. So by clicking on that, it's going to import the property address into my loop, as you'll see. By clicking on continue, you'll be prompted to choose your loop type or your loop template. It is broken down by state. So Georgia, you're listed up top. The Florida folks, you're listed down below. I'm choosing my Georgia listing loop. As I click on continue, I'm finished, and we are now complete at step one. So step one is simple. It's just clicking on add loop to create your loop. So what does a loop look like? Well, you have your property address located at the very top of the screen. In the middle of the screen is where you will be able to add your forms. As you scroll down below, you have your service providers. Now notice, your third-party vendors are just featured. They do not see anything in the loop unless you would click in this section and click on this button. And even at that point, nobody sees anything. The only time someone ever sees anything within a loop is when you physically share them a document. So I could have added 1,000 people and 1,000 documents. The only people that have access to those forms are going to be you and your staff members until you actually share those forms. As I scroll down below, we have our people section. Notice it says admin for your home sold guaranteed. Your brokerage will actually be automatically added to every single loop. That means you do not have to add your staff members. They automatically have access to the back end. So there's no need to there's no need to add your staff to the loop. When you go ahead and turn in files and message them, they already have access to that. So don't add your staff members. That's only going to make things confusing. Now, just like from before, to add someone to a loop, all you need to do is click on add person in the middle of the loop to begin adding your people. Myself, I'm going to do this in a separate place, in a separately different place, and I'll explain why here shortly. The last part is your listing checklist. So you do have customization here on how you want to utilize the task function. In the drop-down next to the task, you can click on a rename or even delete that. Hopefully you're doing a CMA on every transaction, so I don't need that tab. But you want to remind yourself to create this listing presentation. I can assign this a due date and even assign this to a person. As I scroll down, there is the ability to click on where it says add task and then add your own task to the loop. Now, I am going to click on where it says listing checklist to minimize this. Now, we have our first question. I did not see a rental loop. Can it be added? There's not a rental loop template created. I would contact your staff members, Brenda, on how to create that. So what you will do is when you choose your loop type, you can scroll to the top of the screen and then just change it. Or when you create your loop from the beginning, you'll just bypass using the loop template. So if I go to this first page, I can bypass this altogether. And then just choose my rental type from the beginning. But yeah, definitely get in contact with your staff members in order to get this set up. Because if you're going to be doing a lot of rentals, it would make sense to have a rental loop template. So Dave, we have a question about a PDF, how to delete and add PDFs within DotLoop. Dave, I will revisit how to manage your PDFs at the very end of the training. So now that we have our loop created, My step two, I haven't added any documents yet, right? Step two is clicking on where it says view details. By going into view details, you will notice that this serves as a transaction cover sheet for your loop. So this is where you're going to enter in all the information. And this is where you're going to enter in all the information that pre-populates your forms. So like your financials, contract, listing information. So this is a nucleus of your transaction. By entering the information in here first, it pre-populates your form. It will activate the features for other people to make an offer on your listing when it's ready. This is a really important step, especially if you're going to be utilizing that reporting feature, or what I refer to as the book of business feature. That's important to make sure you have all this information entered. This also explains why I come here to add my client. It's real simple to always be in a hurry, right? I know this for myself, and I'm going on for almost working here for 10 years. If I do not come into view details first and add my people, I forget to. By adding your clients in view details, it kind of forces you to come in here, and then while you're here, you might as well fill out the rest of the information. So starting from top to bottom, the loop status. I'm going to cover this a little bit more towards the end of the training, but for now, we are going to choose pre-listing. Loop name. So it defaulted to the street address. But what if I need to change this? What if I started with my client's name? This is where we can go back in and change it to either the property address or whatever we want it to be. So back to the people section. The first thing I need to do is click on where it says none. By doing so, this is where we're going to select our role within the loop. So right now, we're the listing agent. By doing this, this is going to activate things like the signature boxes on the forms. It's going to import your company information. And for a lot of these other features, you need to make sure that you mark your role, and that's really important. So everyone in the loop should have a role assigned to them. To add my client, this would be the third time I've showed you, but we're ready to go ahead and add a person. By clicking on add person, I want to type my client's first and last name. And Paige Pierce, during COVID, I randomly got into disc golf. Paige Pierce, I recently met. There's actually professional disc golf. So she's a 5-time world champion. And I'm a big person. I'm like, 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds. This person's like pint size, and she could throw it like 400 feet further than I can. So she's like my idol. And I just got a set of her disc game today. So if you're wondering who Paige Pierce is, you should Google Paige Pierce. She's the most incredible disc golfer I've ever seen. Anyways, so Paige is selling her house. I'm typing in her email address and her first last name and email address. In order to e-sign in DotLoop, you will need to have an email address, which makes sense. Now, from this screen, there are 2 other boxes I can select, both of which I rarely ever select. The first box is to send an introductory email to Paige. Now, to me, that's redundant. Why do I need to send an email to someone to let them know that I'm going to send them an email? That really doesn't make any sense. The second thing is clicking add to my team. So within DotLoop, as you kind of recall what I said earlier, that is so much better than saying as previously noted. Nothing is seen in DotLoop until you share it, which is going to be step 4. The one exception is if you add someone to your team. Now, I know there are a lot of teams within DotLoop that is going to be like the next phase of training. But when adding someone to a team of your loop, which is a little bit different, that you're giving that person your access. So why would I ever give my same access to someone? Why would I ever give someone the ability to manage my documents, do things on my behalf? Well, it's kind of there. So let's say you are a husband and wife. Let's say my wife and I are on the same team. I can add her team access to have full access to my loop. The other thing or other reason you would do this is if you have an assistant. So if my assistant will need my access to the loop. You will not, and please don't give your client team access. Your client doesn't need to see everything in the loop. They need to see exactly what you send them. Do not give your vendors team access. Do not give the agent on the other side of the transaction team access. It's only used for those two scenarios. Now, in this situation, I am going to select Paige's role, and then I'm going to type in her property address, etc. Now, had you pre-added your client, this information would already be entered. That's why I like to pre-add that information as soon as I get my client's information. Now, as I scroll down, I'm just going to fill out the listing information, make it a little bit longer than, give them a couple of weeks. But had this been a live transaction, I'm filling out all this information. When we are finished, we can click on Save at the bottom of the screen or at the top of the screen. Either way, we are ready to continue. So up until this point, we've created our loop and we've gone into view details. Step three is when you add your document. Now, for the first part of today's training, I'm going to show you how to add the interactive forms. On the second part, I will show you how to upload documents from your computer. As we discussed earlier, documents are not fillable until they've been added to the loop. The way to add your documents is to click on where it says templates in the middle of the screen, and then go in and choose the document you wish to add. They are broken up into the Florida and Georgia sections. So I'm adding seller documents into my loop. Now, if I'm using all of these seller documents, what I can do is just go to the bottom of this screen and simply click on Select All and copy, and it's going to add that entire folder. I can search for a document. So if I go into the search box, I can type in listing and then put in my listing agreement. So all we are simply doing is just selecting the documents and then adding them into your loop. Now that the documents have been added to my loop, we are ready to fill them out. So step three is when you really begin to fill out the documents. Steps 1 and 2, you're essentially preparing your loop for this moment. Now, to fill out documents, there's a couple ways to do it. What I like to do is click on the box next to where it says listing documents, and then click on open. Now you have the ability to click on each individual document and fill it out separately, but if you're filling out a group of forms, you might as well fill them out together. This is a huge time saver. Now notice, as I select the document, I get these other options that show up. Excuse me. Let's take a moment to make sure that we understand what this means. The first option is archiving. Archiving is DotLoop's version of deleting. Documents, folders, loops cannot be deleted, they can be hidden. So I just added a price reduction, which doesn't make sense. We haven't even listed it. So I'm going to select archive. Now this document has been hidden. To bring this document back to life, what you would do is click on where it says show archive, and it's going to display all the archive documents within your loop. And the drop down next to the document is when you can click on archive. Make a copy. This happens more than you think, but sometimes people just simply add documents to the wrong loop. Instead of having to download those documents and re-upload them, you can simply make a copy. You can also print these documents to send them right to the printer, or download a copy of these documents to your loop. So let's say you're opting to not utilize the e-signature function, but you want to fill out the documents and still meet with your clients in person. You can still fill out the documents and then download this as a PDF and bring them to your clients. There is an e-fax solution. Now, the e-fax solution is limited to 100 pages per month per person. After that, you have to use the traditional method. Sharing is how we send our forms. In this situation, we need to fill out these documents, so we are going to click on open. By clicking on open, we get an autofill box. Our natural tendencies will be to click out of this box. Please do not do that. This is what imports all the information from the view details, which is our step 2. Our seller's been added. I've been added. So that means that signature function will automatically be activated. And then as I scroll down, you see the company information from the My Account details. I forgot to type in my phone number and a zip code. By clicking on autofill, all that work that we did now comes to life. Everything will be highlighted in yellow that was imported from the view details. And now at this point, we can begin signing our form or filling out our document. It's that simple. As you scroll down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see that your client name is listed, but there are 2 sellers, right? Because we've taken the steps that we've done, when Paige goes to sign, Paige is only going to see where she needs to sign. There's no other box that we need to do here. We do not need to do anything here, which you'll see here shortly. Now, when you're ready to sign, you can wait till after your client signs. All you need to do is click on Sign Now. And this is the e-signature box. In this box, by clicking on Adopt to Sign, you have successfully e-signed. Now, we have a question from Dana. Is there a live function to where you can have your client sign a document on your screen while you're at the appointment? Absolutely. Where is it? Once I click on Save, we'll change it. Let me go back into this function. Under More, Host in-person signing is how you can have your client sign right on your screen. Good question. Now, we cover that functionality in the advanced training as well, but play around with it. And I'm going to show you how to play around with DotLoop at the very end. But under More, Host in-person signing is how you can have someone sign right on your screen. As you scroll down, it's going to take you to the next page. Are you following? I want a new house. You can begin filling out the remaining portion of your document. The e-signing page's initials are already selected. And it's up to you when you want to sign. Most people prefer to sign after the clients have signed the document, but if you want to e-sign as you go, you're more than welcome to. Now you're taken in to the remaining portion of your form to begin filling this out. When you're finished filling out all of your documents, and when you're finished filling signing, all you need to do is click on save, and you've successfully filled out your documents. So filling out your documents within DotLoop is a very simple process. What really makes that as simple as I showed you is making sure you're not skipping the view details and making sure you're not skipping that pop-up box. Those two features really go hand in hand. We have a question. Does this auto-populate from the MLS? The information from your loop will auto-populate from the view details tab. Lastly, we still need to send these documents. So step one, we created the loop. Step two was view details. Step three was adding and filling out our forms. Now we need to send on the page. Right now, Paige is still waiting on these forms. She has no clue that she has a packet of documents waiting on her. By clicking on share, we get the share permission box. Now Paige has been selected, and Paige has 7 initial fields assigned to her. So does it understand from the population? What MLS do you belong to? That could be something I could follow through with in follow up to see if the information will feed in from your MLS. Yeah. For Florida, so Florida, Mid-Florida MLS and GL MLS. I'll follow up with Dana once the training's over to let you know if those fees are within DotLoop or not. Now, from the listing perspective, it's not going to auto-populate your listing because you're going to be entering that information in to begin with. So the MLS feed would auto-populate. It comes in beneficial when you're making an offer. But I'll follow up with Dana later on this week on what information feeds into DotLoop. Now, Paige can sign these forms. By clicking on Can Sign, there are 4 options you can grant your client. If you ever forget what that option is, simply hover over top of it and it will tell you. View only. View only is intended for third parties. That allows those people to be able to view documents, and that's it. So let's say I have an attorney that I'm adding to the loop. I just want my attorney to be able to print off forms. That's what you're going to use. Can't sign. You're going to use can't sign the most. That allows your clients to view and sign forms. Can fill and sign for documents like a seller disclosure you would need your clients to fill out. And then we have can edit in private. Can edit in private is only used when you share these documents to an agent on the other side of the transaction. It allows those agents to be able to fill out documents, and you do not see any changes until those documents have been sent back to you. Kind of in real life, right? If I fax you over a form, I won't see what you've changed until you send it back. What's unique about DotLoop is that when a change gets made, your signatures drop off. and a new version of that form gets created. In the situation in which I send it off to another agent, they make a bunch of changes. When I get that back, my client's signatures will be gone, and then any changes will be highlighted in yellow. So you're probably going to use the top three the most, and you're only utilizing the bottom permission only when you're sending this off to another agent. Lastly, you can type in a customized message to your client. And not only can your clients interactively sign, you can attach hard copies to that email so they can look over this document in advance. As soon as I click on share, your documents have been shared. We're waiting on our client. And that concludes the first main section of our training. I'm going to keep putting back those 4 steps on you to really, emphasize what we just covered. We created our loop for step 1. Step 2 was view details. Step 3 is when we edit our documents, filled them out, and activated the e-signature function. Step 4, we sent them. Now, we have a question. Do the seller's disclosure, are they equipped with fillable spaces? Absolutely. All the GAR documents and Florida documents are also made interactive, just like your internal forms. Thank you for the question. Since I'm not a member of those associations, I don't have access to those forms, but they work the same way on how I just showed you. We're at a good stopping point on our agenda. We actually have 2 more sections to cover, and the remaining sections go fairly quickly. What other questions came up on the first section of today's training? Also, thank you for answering questions. It's kind of funny. When you're doing a training, when you're doing an actual training, if no one answers questions, I feel like I'm in my kitchen, is where I've been working at since March, is where you feel like you're talking to yourself. So Dana had asked, do we have all the up-to-date Georgia and Florida forms? Yes, all the forms are updated. Now, if you see that a document's out of date, please let me know. Please let me know immediately, and I'll get in touch with our forms team. But all the documents that are in there are up to date. We have 2 questions on how to delete a loop or archive a loop. Remember, can't delete loops, you can hide them. That is the last thing I show you. So you guys are about 20 minutes ahead of yourself. We also have, how do we get access to these forms? Betsy, once you're added to your company account and your account has been created, you will have access to your forms. To verify with your staff members that you have access to your brokerage account, and then you'll have access to these forms. All right, keep the questions rolling in. I'm going to show you a couple more things on this screen, and then we're going to go into the client experience. The first thing I want to show you is the activity log located at the very top of the screen. The activity log is where you can see an online audit trail of everything that's happening in your loop. Everything that happens in your loop is categorized by date and time. Now, I will cover this more at the very end of today's training, but prior to calling into customer support, please check your activity log. Many questions can be answered. Now, when I worked in customer support in 2011 and 2012, I recall by the time most people call in and finish answering the question, I've actually already read through the activity log in majority by the time you're finished, I can answer the question just by looking at the activity log. It's going to answer, did something happen? Why something happened? I never sent these to my clients. Yes, you did. Or, I don't remember creating this loop. I created this loop at 219. The next group of features can be found in the drop-downs. In the drop-downs, you're going to see there are a lot of functionality. The two things I'm going to bring to your attention is A, the signature verification page. Every document that has been e-signed in DotLoop, there is a signature verification page that you have access to. This is often referred to as an e-signature page as well. This includes the date, the IP address, a randomly generated ID, security level of that signature, of every single signature on this document. This is what makes this a valid e-signature. This is what keeps DotLoop in compliance with the federal e-sign laws. Now, when people ask for that, like I said, they're probably going to ask for an e-signature certificate or something of that nature. And typically only attorneys and lenders will ask for that. The last thing we're going to cover is his history. Anytime a change gets made, a new version gets created right in front of you. You don't realize it, but we're doing it. What happens to all those previous versions of that loop? We save them. I can go back in and view or download any previous version of this document. So think of this as an online audit trail. The two common use scenarios for this is A, let's say you do get audited, there you go. Or B, let's say you send a document off to another agent, they made a bunch of changes. You want to see that document before the other agent changed it, you have access to those. So oftentimes our marketing team will come to some of the veteran employees and ask us, what is our favorite feature that they can kind of tell people about? This is it. In the case you get edited, in case you make a change, you always have access to the previous version of this form. I absolutely love this feature. All right, moving on. Again, keep the questions coming. Every question will get answered before we do leave today's training. We are ready to then go into the client experience. So right now, I'm Paige Spears, the greatest disc golf player ever to walk the face of the earth. So notice, Paige gets an email from you as the agent. Yes, it is sent via DotLoop, but it's coming from you as the agent. By clicking and open up this email, it's going to have your brokerage symbol at the top of the screen, your signature or the message, your company information, and then as you scroll down below, it's the document. At this point, this is where you can call me up and tell me to open up these documents and walk me through these documents just like I was right next to you. Now, PDF documents are hard copies of forms. So when I'm attaching a PDF document, make sure to let your client know it's a hard copy, because they may go in here and try to sign it and tell you they can't sign. It's a PDF. It's not meant to be signed. It's a hard copy. We do include our customer support number in the middle of the screen. We do not expect you to be the client's customer support team. Feel free to have them call customer support if they are having issues signing. Now, to begin the e-signature process as a buyer or seller or tenant, click on View All Documents. Your client will be taken into a guided e-signature process. Now, as I try to fill out these forms, I can't. Reason being is we said you can only sign these forms. By clicking on Start Signing, it's going to guide your client to the very first signature initial box. As you recall from earlier, there were multiple signature boxes here, but Paige is only going to be able to see where her name is. The same exact way that you sign is the same way that your client will sign. It's the same exact box. Now, if I click into this box, you should see my cursor is flashing. This means this is an editable signature box. That's kind of weird, but what if Paige wanted to sign with her middle initial or add junior? She can't. Now, what this is really intended for is, let's say your client is a power of attorney or a trustee, but it is in this pop-up box that your client can make any changes. The last thing to note is at the bottom of the screen, if your client wishes to draw their signature, they can. 95% of the time, your client is just going to click on Adopt to Sign. Just make sure that you're aware that changes can be made. At this point, it's a guided signing process. And that's it. When your client clicks on Finish Signing, they get a pop-up box to rate the app. It is when your clients see you're done, they successfully e-signed. That is when, I want to show you what this looks like. That is when you get notified as your agent, and your client also gets an email that they signed. So this is real life. This happens in real time. If I jump back to my agent screen and refresh, you'll see that these documents have been signed. Also, your client gets an email copy of what they signed. So by clicking on this link, I can click on Review, and then your client gets taken into access to what they just signed. And that's it. Pretty straightforward on the client sign-in experience. Anybody have any questions based off that? I'm sorry, one last thing. If your client wishes, they can set up a free account by typing in a password. That is beneficial if you plan on introducing service providers to your clients. It's not necessary. We don't force your clients to set up a free account. Provided your clients keep access to these emails that they sign, they'll have access to view their forms. All right. So now we're on to the last portion of today's training, and it is how to import hard copy documents into your loop. So up until this point, we've worked with the interactive document, but what happens if someone faxes you a form, or you scan in a bunch of documents, or you just have hard copies of documents, right? By clicking on Add Document, there are two more ways that you can import a document into the loop. Today, I'm going to show you how to import directly from your computer. On the advanced training that is done on Wednesdays, they show you how to email into the loop. I will show you how to register for advanced training here shortly. But in this case, I'm going to import a document that has been saved to my computer by clicking on Browse and simply selecting the documents we wish to import. just like adding an attachment to an email. Within DotLoop, the only file type that you can import is a PDF. If you try to import a non-PDF, it's not going to let you. What does that mean? Let's say you want to import an Excel spreadsheet or something to that nature. All you need to do is simply click on File, Save As, and change the file type. So Valerie asked, can this be done to a document? So Valerie, at this point, we're just importing a document right now. That's all we're doing. Now, things like splitting a PDF into multiple files would need to be done before you share the document. But right now, we are just importing documents right from our computer. So the purpose of this is, let's say the document is generated somewhere else. Maybe an agent sent you an author, or you scanned in documents from a hard copy. That's when you'll actually utilize that feature. Yep. Now, I'm going to click and open up my the documents I uploaded. We had a couple questions on what can you do to a PDF once you've uploaded. Under File, you'll actually see some of the things you could do to this document. So let's say this. Let's say I rotated or I scanned in the document sideways. This is where I can go in and rotate it. This is also where I can actually split this document. So I scan in 3 documents, but I need to split these documents into separate forms before I turn them into my brokerage. This is how we can do that. So to answer the previous question, you would split the document before you add anything to it. Now, to split a document, you just need to specify how many documents it is and just put the page numbers. Now, the first document is the addendum, and that's going to be page 101. The second document is the agency disclosure, which you can type in agency, and that's pages 2 and 3. And the remaining document is just going to be our contract. So this 10-page document that I scanned into my computer, once I split this, will now be split into 3 separate forms. The original version of this document will be archived. So in the event that you actually split it incorrectly, you can pull that document out of the archive and then archive the other forms. Not only can you split and rotate documents, you can add things to them. So let's say an agent sent me a document outside of DotLoop, but I want my client to sign it. I can go up and click on Add Initials. My cursor becomes that box. You simply click and place where you want your client to initial. You will then go up to anyone and specify who's signing there. That is the biggest difference between the interactive documents and the documents you add yourself from your computer. When you're adding your own documents into a loop from your computer, if you want your clients to sign them, you just need to tell the system where. You don't get that autofill box like the interactive prepared forms. You can also add a signature box. Adding a signature box in the initial box, same way. You can add a text box. Now that text box is really small, so to resize it, it's in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. You can make it big or small and then begin to type into that box. Now, you do have different formatting options, such as the different justifications, highlight, strike through, highlight color, transparency. There's a lot that you can do with that box. Regardless how this document starts, let's say I started as an online form, I sent it to another agent, they printed it off, they had their client sign, they sent it back to me, I need to initial off on these changes, you can still do all that within the system, right? Also, as you're playing around with the system, notice these shortcut keys. One of the more popular shortcuts is the ability to copy and paste these fields. So to copy and paste, for instance, I would just simply highlight these fields and follow the prompts to copy these, which is Command-Shift-C. And then I can scroll to the bottom, to the next page and paste it. On our advanced training, we do cover a lot of these features, but play around. I'll be honest, I was on I think it was on my honeymoon when we released this feature back in 2000. Actually, it wasn't on my honeymoon. I was on an anniversary trip. I got married in 2010. And I was just on a live training. I'm like, oh, what are these little shortcut keys? So up until this point, we created our loop. We showed you the client experience. We imported PDFs. We split them. We added signature boxes. How do we turn these files into our brokerage? If you remember, right from the beginning, our staff is already here. You do not need to do any adding here. When you're ready to turn this file in for review, click on Submit for Review located at the top right-hand corner of the screen. Think of this as you electronically driving your file to your brokerage. By clicking on Submit for Review, type. We're going to choose listing. By clicking on listing and I click on submit, I'm going to type in a little notification. This is test. By clicking on submit, your file has been turned into the brokerage. It now says needs review, and it will be reviewed by any admin. Now, hopefully, you'll get a notification email back that this has been approved. But let's say you miss a document. This will say returns, and they will have sent you a message on what you need to fix. You would just fix what needs fixing. I'm allowed to say fixing since I live in Kentucky. And then resubmit for review. So please do not forget to submit for review. Your admins have been trained to look for the submit for review and needs review notification. If you do not submit your files for review, your brokerage will never know. So that's how you're going to get paid. That's how you bring attention to this loop. That concludes the actual training. So we had a lot of questions. How do we make this? How do we delete this loop? How do we archive loops? Before we do that, if I go to the top of the screen, this is where I mark it as an active listing. When you mark it as an active listing, this is what it allows it to show up for other people to make an offer on, provided you went into the view details and filled out the property address and marked yourself as the listing agent. This is also where you can archive your loop. So I think I saw that question show up about 5 or 6 different times. How do you delete loops? You can archive them. Now, here's your pro trick of the day. This is how I know you're still with me. You've been on this training for an hour and 5 minutes. So I know we're at the very end of our threshold. Your training loops, change it to other. I always put all my training links under other. Where can you go to get assistance? Our customer support number is down below. Support hours are from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Friday. That's Eastern time. 9 to 6 on the weekend. They may ask you for your customer ID. That can be found at the bottom of the screen. This Help Center. Click on this Help Center and bookmark this. This is by far going to be your best friend here. This is our support site. Every single thing we found can be found under Agents. Getting started, you'll be able to see different support links. There is an article on every single thing that we've covered today. Also notice there's support chat. I myself, I've worked in customer support. I manage our customer support team. I hate calling in any customer support. And we have one of the highest rated customer support departments for SaaS companies. SaaS means software as a service in the US. Now, chat. You're going to get a faster turnaround time on chat. I recommend using the support chat before actually calling. I promise you, you can sign up for additional training. Additional training can be found at the very top of the screen. On the follow-up training page, click on webinars, and you'll see under basic agent training, we do this exact training every single day at some point. We rotate between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be a different trainer than myself, but we cover the same topic. When you're ready to try out the advanced training, I know the advanced training is going to sound really tempting. If this is your first time seeing DotLoop, give yourself a month, because we don't cover things on how do you share documents. We cover on how do you email into a loop, how do you make your own documents, and things like that. That's held every Wednesday at 2 p.m. I will be sending a copy of today's training to Dana to disperse off to you, but as well, you have access to live training every single day. At this point, I'm going to stop my recording, and then I'm going to answer the remaining questions.